If you have a smart car and you're still taking it to Mercedes to have them suck the oil out of it because it doesn't have a drain plug, then you have some options. One of the options is you can put in a rubber drain plug, and that's probably the easiest option. So what you do with that is you drill a hole in the oil pan, just a little bit smaller than the drain plug. I'm not sure where you'd buy the kit from, but I'm sure you can get a kit somewhere online, or you can just buy a generic rubber drain plug. So when you drill the hole, it's got to be a fair bit smaller than the plug itself, so when it goes in there, it'll squish into the side of the plug just like that, and it'll hold it in there so it's not going to fall out. So when you go to drill your drain plug in, make sure you got some oil in it. Your first bit of shavings are not going to go into the pan. Depending on where you're putting your plug, make sure your drill bit isn't very long. Like on this one, I cut the drill bit in half, so it's not going to go into the pan and drill a hole in the pickup tube. On this car, I drilled the hole in the front, because whenever you go do an oil change, your car is sitting at an angle anyway. So I put the oil drain plug in the front, and then when the car's at an angle, more of the oil is going to drain out. Because if I put the drain at the back and the car is angled forward, you know, you're always going to have that bit of dirty oil in there. On this car, I didn't like the rubber plug idea. Like this one I pulled out, and you can see it got gouged on the side, and that one I probably still hold the oil in, but it's kind of, you know, borderline shot now. Could come out a little bit and start leaking oil, so that's just for example purposes. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to weld a nut on the pan. So I cut out, this is from a truck I was taking to the scrapyard. You can probably go to a junkyard and, you know, find a metal oil pan from a vehicle, one that's still has a good drain plug in, and you know, just cut it out just like that. You know, they don't let you take a grinder to the junkyard, but you can probably take a Sawzall, you know, and just get it at an angle, and then, you know, use some snips and then just cut it out. And then, you know, they're probably not even going to charge you for it. So my original plan was just to cut this piece out a little bit nicer and then weld it onto the bottom of the pan. But I didn't take into account that this one has the threads on the inside. You know, so it has a threaded part on the inside, and then when you tighten it up, it tightens onto the metal of the outside of the oil pan, which is good, but you always have a little bit of oil in the pan because that nut sits up a little bit higher. And if I wanted to weld it over top, that nut is going to be in the way. If you look for oil pan, look for one with an external nut, probably on a transmission. Would probably be the best spot to find a drain plug. Because on a transmission, some of them, the nut is on the outside. Or you can just go buy one from a kit. If you order them online, they're like 30 bucks or something. Kind of ridiculous for just a bolt and a nut. So instead of using this piece of drain pan that I cut off, I just found a fine thread nut. Even though it doesn't have a big flat surface area on it, you know, the flat surface is pretty small compared to the amount of surface that the actual drain plug takes up. You know, like the flat surface on the drain plug bolt there is pretty wide compared to the flat surface on the nut. But as long as I put a copper washer on there that fits really tight to the drain plug, it should seal up fine. So I'm going to pull the drain pan off the car, and then I'm just going to weld that nut on there, and then there's my drain plug. That's the plan anyway. So how I drilled the hole for the drain plug, I just figured out where I was gonna have my drain. Cut a drill bit in half so it fit under the car. Even though the car is jacked up a fair bit, still it's pretty hard to get a drill under there. And then just drilled the hole. And then the oil drained out and coated my drill. But at least I know there's no metal shavings in there. And I'm taking the oil pan off anyway, so if there was, then I'll see it and clean it out. So I unbolted took out all the bolts from the oil pan. They're all Torx bolts except the hold down bracket for the block heater, if you have a block heater on yours. They're all Torx bolts. And what size are they? They are they're all E8 Torx bolts, so size is E8. And once you get it unbolted, I think they're sealed with silicone from Mercedes, but if you do have a gasket, it might come off easier. This one I'm gonna have to pry on. It is held on there with silicone. Yeah, a wider screwdriver or a wider, smaller chisel is probably best. And if you just angle your screwdriver and just hammer it along, and then every now and then angle it back in. That Mercedes silicone is holding on pretty good. And careful with the crankcase because it is aluminum. You don't want to beat on it too much because then you'll get a little divot like that. There it goes. There she be. There's no screen on there. I thought there'd be I thought for sure there'd be a screen on the pickup tube. Yeah, it's just a tube. Yeah, no screen, no nothing on there. There's the underside of the engine. All nice and black. Black, very black. So I'll have to come and scrape the silicone off there. And then I'm gonna go weld my drain plug in and silicone it and stick it back on. Might have to drill the hole out a little bit bigger, but so just like that. A little bit of engine degreaser. Doesn't seem to really be washing it out of there very well. Yeah. I think this is the biodegradable stuff. Yeah. Okay, I got it wiped out a fair bit. It's coated with some kind of a black material on there. So, and I'm gonna have to drill out the hole a little bit bigger so my drain plug will fit in there. There we go, I drilled it out a little bit larger. I went with the grinder and ground off the burrs on the inside so nothing's gonna flake off over time. So here's my drain plug, I just screwed the nut on. And just like that. I get it centered and just welded in there, and I got a drain plug. There we go, that should do it. I think I got it welded nice all the way around. I went over my weld a couple times just to make sure there wasn't any little pinholes where the oil could get out. You don't want to have a perpetually oily oil pan by having a little pinhole in it. Okay, so got the oil pan all painted. Just got to clean out the inside. All kinds of dirt and crap in there. And this is all kind of self-explanatory stuff that everybody knows, but so I'll put a thin bead of silicone around it. Let it sit for a little bit, let it tack up so you get a little film of silicone on there, and then I'll just go put it on the car and bolt it up. I already cleaned out the underside of the car, so the surface, the mating surface on the underside of the crankcase is all clean, free of oil. And then but this stuff is pretty good. This Permatex, the right stuff, very good stuff. A little bit light on the silicone. Just kind of smear it around. You don't want to put too much in it and have it fall into the oil pan. Even though the smart car doesn't have a pickup screen on the oil pickup tube, it's not good to suck in chunks of silicone. So don't put too much on there. You don't need a whole lot. Go with my screwdriver and poke the silicone through the holes. So I don't get my bolts all covered in silicone. Okay, it's been sitting for 5-10 minutes. There's no junk in there. Just a little bit of fluff. I'm not going to stick my hand in there because my hand is dirty. I stuck a bag on the bottom of the crankcase because there's no doors on the shop and the wind is blowing through here. I didn't want a bunch of sand to blow up there and get stuck in there. And you want to make sure it's all lined up before you stick it in place. Make sure you know which way it's going on. Like I just didn't know and put it on backwards. So pay attention to which way you're sticking it on. Once you stick it on and get silicone all over, it's maybe not going to seal as good as if you just stuck it in place correctly the first time. There we go, something like that. Get the first bolt in there. Pick the bolt holes that are easiest first. Come on, there we go. Just get a couple in there so your pan stays aligned and is not wiggling around. There's one. And then once you have a couple in place, where's a good one? There's one. Hold it. A little impact works great for this, or if you have a air ratchet too, I guess, but an air ratchet will blow dust all over if you're doing it on the floor. And just gonna check them all by hand, make sure I got them tightened up properly. It's because I don't know how tight that impact would tighten them. And it's an aluminum casing, so don't tighten it too much. You don't want to strip one out, and they don't have to be that tight. You know, if you got one or two of them in place, the silicone will hold the pan on. And since I'm here and the oil pan is nice and new, it's not dirty yet, nice new paint, I got a oil pan heater. I'm gonna put one of these on the other car too. I think this one is a 400 watt pad. Might be just a 200 watt, I can't remember. I ordered this one from China. This isn't one I got from Napa. One from Napa is like, I guess over $100 or something. And heating pad has just got a 3M sticker on the back. You just orient how you want it on there. Best to have all sealing surfaces sealed, so you want it in a spot where it's gonna, you know, where every section of it is touching the pan. Okay, I'll go with that. Just want to make sure every surface is stuck on there. I guess that's as far over as I can go with it. Oh, maybe a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna go with that. And don't just stick it on there and expect it's gonna stay on there. It's a good idea to go around it with some silicone as well. I'm gonna use the same great stuff, Permatex silicone, to go around it and silicone it on. And I'm not gonna do it today, but I'm just gonna zip tie it to the same block heater wire that's there. For now, I'm just gonna trace it back and probably throw this thing in under the car, under the cover there, and later on I'll run another, I'll cut the end and I'll run the cord through the firewall in the battery box there, and then there's another plug-in, and then I'll just plug it into that other plug-in that's there. Probably have to put a splitter because I'm going to have a battery warmer as well. So there'll be a battery warmer, oil pan heater and a block heater in this car, and hopefully that'll make it a good winter machine. This one has really good compression in it compared to the other one that doesn't like to start well in the winter time. The other one has a really hard time starting in anything like -15 or colder. Usually smart cars start really good in the cold, and I think this one will too, but I want to give it a little bit of help. So I'm going to go around there with the silicone just to keep it on. So I just cut the cord end off of this thing. And the wires in there are pretty tiny, usually on a block heater. You have some big fat wires on there, even though this is only like 200 watts. Still, that's the problem with some of the stuff from China, because in China everything is 220 volt. So the wiring doesn't have to be as thick. But here in Canada it's 110, and it needs some heavier duty wires, so hopefully it still works okay. Yeah, we'll see. There's some tiny wires. Okay, I got it routed through there. Same location as the block heater cord. I'm just gonna have it sit on the underside of the cover for now, and then later on when I remove the cover to change out the fuel filter, I'll run this cord into the battery box area, and then I can wire it in later. So as soon as you got your pan bolted on, everything looks good. You know, it's all siliconed and bolted in there tight. You don't even have to wait to put the oil in. You can give it a few minutes if you want, maybe, you know, wait 15 minutes and then dump some oil in. But once that silicone is squished in there with the pan, it's not going to leak. So as soon as you got the pan bolted in, you can add oil. I've been using this 0W40. Smart Car seems to really like it. And I use 10% Lucas heavy duty in there. And so far it's been working really good. One thing you'll notice if you start running Rotella and you haven't ran Rotella in the car previous is when you pull your dipstick out right after the oil change is going to be pretty black. And the reason for that is Rotella and Royal Purple have a lot of detergents in there, so it removes a lot of the soot. So if your car's never ran Rotella in it, and then all of a sudden you switch over, start using Rotella, change the oil in it, run it for a few minutes, pull your dipstick out. That dipstick is probably going to be just as near black as it was when you changed the oil, before you changed the oil. How well the drain plug's working. I don't see any oil leaks, so that's good. The bolt had some dirt on it. Man, I go through a lot of oil. Yeah, 4 barrels of used oil. All of them are full. I still keep doing oil changes and stuff. Need a bigger tank. Oh, cool. There we go. There we go, success. Oil pan with heating pad and drain plug.